Hello, and welcome back, adventurers. Get comfy as I tell you a story of the Darklord of Sebua. People of the Black Land believed that the death was only a journey to another existence. In the afterlife, all would remain essentially as it is, provided one had been good and kind, provided one's heart had been true. This is the story of a woman for whom that cycle held no comfort. Because her heart had been filled with misdeeds, she knew that only horrors would await her. Terrified of judgment, she sacrificed life and spirit to avoid it, and in the end, she only condemned herself to the fate that was worse. Tiet was once lived in a desert kingdom whose history was over 1,000 years old. Her father was a scribe who served Camus, fourth son of the pharaoh. Camus could not fail to notice Tiet when she visited the estate of her father. She was lovelier than any woman he had ever seen before. When Camus asked for Tiet's hand, she agreed without hesitation, for she was as ambitious as she was beautiful. Tiet was not Camus's first wife. His half-sister Neferi held that honor and was therefore known as Grand Wife. Although Camus called Tiet his wife, she was little more than an esteemed concubine. This arrangement did not suit Tiet, and she sought to change it. Through clever manipulation, she placed Neferi in a compromising position with a slave. Camus, his honor stained, ordered that Neferi suffer the fate of all adulteresses, death. Though Neferi pleaded her innocence, she was thrown into a pit filled with wild jackals. Her remains were burned upon a pyre in public. Now Tiet was Camus's grand wife. None suspected Tiet, none that is but a powerful priest Zordanak. He was not a good man, nor were the gods he secretly worshipped beneficent. Armed with the knowledge of Tiet's crime, he coerced her affections from her. In time, this unlikely pair fell in love. Tiet succumbed to his power and Zordanak to her charms. Tiet, tired of her husband, would disappear each day into the night, making her way to the temple of Apollos, god of darkness, devourer of the sun. There she and her priest would enjoy intimate meetings. Tiet was now an adulteress as well as a murderer. At night, the weight of her wrongs began to play on her mind, and she slept fitfully. One night she dreamt of a journey to the underworld. She joined Anubis, the jackal god, on a bark that floated upon the river of darkness towards the hall of judgment. There Osiris sat in observance. Maat, goddess of truth, stood before a balance holding a feather. Tiet was about to undergo the test of truth. Maat took her heart from her body. If the heart weighed less than a simple feather, Tiet's afterlife would be peaceful, but if the heart was heavy with sin, it would tip the scale, and more horrid death would await its owner. In Tiet's dream, the scale tipped towards the heart. The fiendish serpents and creatures closed in around her, tearing her flesh from her bones. One placed its claws at her heart and began to pull the organ from her body, and at that moment, Tiet awoke. The following day, Tiet told Zordanak of her nightmare and begged him to find a way to prevent this from happening. There was only one method known to him, a procedure that would forever bind her to the earth above and prevent her from passing into the underworld. He explained that it can only be performed on newly dead, and he was not willing to try it, for the true consequences were unknown. The nightmare did not return, and they continued to meet under the guise of night. Camus was not as foolish as Tiet thought, and he noticed that her affections had waned. He assigned a young servant to spy on her, who successfully overheard conversations that Tiet and Zordanak shared. When Tiet returned home, she overheard Camus proclaiming that Tiet would face a death more horrid than Neferi before her. Tiet returned to the temple and sought out Zordanak. She begged him to kill her and perform the ceremony to save her from the horrors in the Hall of Judgment. Then she drew a dagger from her gown, and begging for the mercy of the god Apollos, she plunged the dagger into her chest. Deep within the temple, Zordanak performed the ceremony that she had desired. Zordanak placed Tiet's heart in a stone jar filled with oils and placed it before the serpent god of darkness. He offered Tiet's heart in return for the safety from the torment of the underworld. Then he wrapped Tiet's body in linen and carried it to his own family tomb. There he poisoned himself with the venom of an asp and laid down beside her to die. Tiet rose next night and, still wrapped in the burial linens, went to the estate of Camus. Each heart within the house was audible to her, beating with a maddening pace, and loudest was the heart of Camus, sounding like a drum, compelling her to seek it out. Tiet stole into his room, silent as a shadow. She placed her hand upon his chest and thought that the heartbeat slowed. Camus stirred and opened his eyes right when she reached for his chest and drew out his heart. Tiet placed a bloody mass to her lips and swallowed it. The audible beating of the other hearts in the household stopped. Satiated, she could hear them no longer. Tiet returned to the tomb and lay down beside the still body of Zornak. When she awoke, she was alone. She had become the Lord of Sebua, a domain in Ravenloft. Thank you so much for sticking around, patient listeners. Heed the warning from Tiet's story, as there are more horrid fates than death. And as always, take care while crossing the mists.